Bring in James Hohmann now, national political correspondent for Washington Post and author of the Post Daily 202 newsletter. Good to see you. Thanks.
Great to see you, Shep.
Hey, this idea from the Sanders camp that they're floating, and I know they have to you, they do to all of us, that their internal polling, and campaigns do their own internal polling, that the internal polling shows it's getting tighter and tighter. What are we to make of that, if anything?
I don't necessarily buy it. I think there's a lot of public survey research. Obviously, Michigan was a big upset. What makes New York different than a lot of the states Bernie has done well in are two things. One, this is a closed primary. Only registered Democrats can vote. Among registered Democrats, Hillary actually won in a bunch of the states that she ended up losing because Sanders brought in a lot of new voters, independents. In New York, there's something called the Working Families Party, which is a very liberal group, which is, tens of thousands of people that aren't eligible to vote in the Democratic primary. And Sanders hasn't, frankly, done well in diverse states with large African-American populations and Hispanic populations. New York has both of those things. I think that's going to end up hurting him. He has a lot of energy. He's going to end up, winning Brooklyn, where he had that huge rally that Ed Henry just mentioned. But the demographics just don't work for him in New York.
And another thing, and along that point, if you're a New Yorker and you woke up a couple of months ago and said, wow, maybe Bernie does have a chance, I'm going to switch from independent to Democrat, or I'm going to switch from Republican to Democrat. Say you decided to do that in January. It was way too late already.
It was October was the deadline, Shep. So, that's why two of Donald Trump's grown children aren't going to be eligible to vote for him on Tuesday because they're not registered Republicans. So it cuts both ways. That definitely hurts Sanders.
This idea of momentum is one thing, but the more important matter is that of math. And if you're able to get the majority or even the vast majority of delegates out of the state of New York, it's very, very hard to chart a mathematical path, isn't it?
It is. Sanders already has a really hard time charting a mathematical path right now. He needs like 2/3 of the pledged delegates that are still out there. It's kind of getting harder and harder with each contest. Even though he's won a bunch in a row, they've been really small states. The last 9 states combined equal far fewer delegates and votes than are up in New York. New York is the biggest prize so far of the 30 states that have voted. And if he loses, Hillary is going to expand her delegate lead. And, we're going to be in a situation where Clinton could lose a bunch of the big contests. She could lose California on June 7th and still easily have enough delegates to win the nomination in Philadelphia.
James, I've heard a lot of Republicans, not Republicans, but I've heard a lot of analysts in the last few days, pundits, say that we're even still talking about this Democratic race as if it's really a 2-person race and not one that's already sealed. It's kind of fake. That this really is a done deal. Is that true?
Well, I think New York is really important. If Sanders can't win in New York, it's going to be, I think that will be the case. If Sanders does win in New York, and look, he did win an upset in Michigan. You never, you got to wait till you count the votes tomorrow. If Sanders does win in New York, it changes the dynamic quite a lot. Then Hillary does look a lot more vulnerable. But if Hillary wins, and that's why both are working so hard in this state, then it's going to be very difficult to sort of plot out a chart. Just a few weeks ago, the Sanders people were saying that it was incredibly illegitimate that Hillary looked like she would be winning the nomination with superdelegates. Increasingly, Sanders' only path to get the nomination is for superdelegates to break in his favor. So now you have a lot of Bernie supporters who are making the opposite argument they were making just 2 weeks ago.
She does have a bigger lead than Barack Obama did at this point, and not by just a few. James Hohmann from the Washington Post and the 202 newsletter. Great to see you. Thanks.